Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the first ever episode of The Deepest Law. The Deepest Law.
The deepest law.
And this show, in a slight departure for this channel, will be dedicated to arts and culture. That will be the main focus of The Deepest Law. I do have two existing streams already, of course. On Tuesday nights, I have Unpopular Opinions, where we generally talk about the news. And on Friday nights, I have the Cigar Stream, where I generally talk about metapolitics and political philosophy and things like that. But kind of within the Cigar Stream, there has also been this sideline of wanting to talk about culture and things like this, which is not really the right fit for that show. It needs its own space, wouldn't you agree, Mark? And
Yes,
hence,
I think so.
and
You're
hence,
assuming that I watch any of your shows with any regularity as well.
well, I mean, exactly. But you just needed to say yes. But so essentially, I've set up The Deepest Law as a space in which we can talk about arts and culture. And by that, I mean everything from the lowest art, pop culture, pap, all the way up to high art, I guess you'd call it, or the things like opera, modern art, stuff you'd go to a gallery to see. So it's going to run the whole gamut. But also within that. I also am reading Batman, and Batman, I think you would agree, is considered art. Would you agree with that, Mark? That it is kind of art.
Do I consider comics to be art? I mean, certainly.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a debate. Oh, it's a debate, I suppose. But I would say arts and culture.
It's as with all things, anything which can portray a narrative, and anything which can touch. I think Batman's special in the realm of general comics as well, because it's anything which is serialized for so long has a journey all of its own, not just in terms of the actual characters, but in terms of everything around it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, certainly a massive icon, I guess I would say. And I wanted to get into the regular Batman comics. That's Batman and Detective Comics, as I mentioned, starting post-crisis. So I don't know how much lore we need to get into here. And I don't know how much you know, Mark.
Yeah, I know a fair bit. There's only one piece which is really relevant for this one, but yeah.
So in the mid-'80s, there's something called Crisis on Infinite Earths in the DC universe, which kind of reset all of the books, or it kind of established a new continuum. Before that, there was Earth 1 and Earth 2, and we'd been following Earth 1 Batman since the Silver Age and through the Bronze Age and everything. But now we were starting again. Only in the case of Batman, we kind of weren't, but kind of were. And this is where it gets a bit tricky. So we pick up the story here with Batman hanging out with Jason Todd Robin about 10, 11 years into his career. Batman 404 is Frank Miller's year one, which I assume you've read, Mark.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, just before we carry on going, because this is an afternoon show, I have a cup of tea and 2 shortbread biscuits with me.
And very good. I have a glass of blood orange San Pellegrino and 2 pieces of shortbread also.
Excellent. So I thought that could be a bit of a tradition where you'd have, because it's kind of high tea, isn't it? So you can have tea and cakes, or a bit of a nibble with this late afternoon stream.
Well, I know that what you're really hiding is the fact that it's not just shortbread. It's these are fist-sized triple chocolate glazed with caramel centers shortbreads from a reputable retailer.
And I think they're just Tesco or something. But,
Oh dear.
So yeah, you've read Year One though by Frank Miller, yeah.
Yes. Although it's been some time since that one.
So what tends to happen is that if you go on the internet and you're like, oh, how should I start reading Batman books? Everybody just goes Year One, Year One, Year One, Year One, and then they say, then read Longest Halloween and Dark Victory. That's basically what you'll get from the internet most of the time. And I was interested in, well, Year One is not really. I mean, it is the start of the continuity, but it is not really in the continuity of everything else that was going on around then. Oh, so what I was interested in doing was reading the post-crisis Batman from the main books forward, excluding Year One, if that makes any sense. And that's kind of what we're doing here. So we're reading from Batman 402 to 431. Now the first post-crisis Batman is actually issue 401, but for some reason DC will not collect that for love nor money. They just won't. People have been asking them for years to put that in a trade paperback, but they won't. So it's still uncollected. We pick up the action in Batman 402, and this is collected in Second Chances, which both me and Mark have read. And we were going to basically review the issues in order, or the stories in order, and give us some highlights, and that's it, really.
So we kick off with like the front page of Second Chances. Can you share that up?
Yeah. Let me share my screen to make this more of a visual feast. Can you see that?
Yes.
You can see this.
Certainly can. If you scroll up a bit though to the actual first page.
Yes. No.
No, that one. Right. I want us to take it like this is just a note for later, but I want you to take note of this Batmobile.
This Batmobile.
Right? This is a cool Batmobile, right?
Yeah,
generally speaking, it's relatively understated. Although it still does have the the large sort of upper half of the bat cowl on the front.
Yeah.
And basically, the further you go into this continuity, like the longer this car becomes. Like it starts off as like this little coupe sort of thing for Batman to whiz around in, and by the end, like that front section has become almost twice as long.
Yeah, no, I've got some questions about that, because I've got reason to believe that elongated version is actually like a snowmobile or something like that. Because in one of the Detective Comics stories that we're going to be looking at, next time we do a Batman episode, he uses the front of the car to clear snow away. Made me think
really,
it could be like a winter edition. But yeah, so here we are. It's the main writer on this run is a chap called Max Allan Collins, and Jim Stalin is actually the artist, which is interesting because he becomes the writer. Did you know that, Mark? That Jim Stalin is the artist on a lot of these?
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's much to say about Max Allan Collins, but he's famous for. He's not famous for doing Batman. He's famous for doing other stuff, essentially. I think he wrote a number of like actual detective stories. If you just Google Max Allan Collins, I don't know what like the top thing is on Wikipedia. When you have a look, Mark. But he's basically famous for something else. And among the, let's just say, the Bat comic fan community, if there is such a thing, and there is, he is one of the least popular writers of all time. In fact, he has described himself as the most hated Bat writer, and it is primarily for this run here. He was on it for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we've got 7, 8, 9, 10. So he had a run of Jim Stalin's already taken over by 415. Look, so he basically had a run of about a year.
I know. I've worked out why Max Collins is a very hateable person.
Why is that then?
He's a Democrat, like an out and out Democrat.
Okay, well, you could kind of tell that from his stories as well. But
no, he basically he wrote Dick Tracy, and then did Batman, and then basically spent the rest of his time at Action Comics Weekly. So that's pretty much the extent of it. He has done some mystery books as well, apparently. So and he wrote part of CSI and Criminal Minds. Do you know those?
The TV series.
Yeah, but he wrote the novels for the TV series.
Oh, right, okay. Well, as well as those things, Collins came in to do this run, which is now collected as Second Chances. But as you'll see, he is replaced midway through this run. Joe Duffy comes in to do this one-shot story, The Ghost of Mashiko Tahara.
Oh God,
which I think you'll agree is a pretty forgettable one-shot.
I think one of the things with this series is it's not just going to be about like the broad stroke Batman stories that people may know and love. Like most people who have even a tangential interest in Batman know about things like the Killing Joke, and they've obviously, if they've watched any of the Nolan verse stuff, you'll probably have picked up a load of stuff on the Joker and whatnot. But there's all these little forgettable stories in the middle with some really ridiculous characters or some interesting contrivances.
I think you'd agree that Batman 413 is shite. I mean,
The whole it drags on too long,
terrible,
and the whole point of it is just. I can't know.
So that then you can see that Jim Stalin takes over as the main writer from Batman 414 onwards, and he basically we're going to run through all of his run as well. Now his run is famous for the death in the family, and also for turning the main Batman book into the, let's just say, the grittier style established by Frank Miller in year one.
Yeah, Colin seems to want to do campy, and then there's very little direction for this first run. He sort of has this overarching storyline with Jason Todd, which is fairly serious, but then there are these weird filler episodes like that Ghost of Tahara one, and like some stuff we'll come on to later, which it just is very at odds with the general tone.
Now, before we continue, I should mention that Max Allen Collins didn't. I believe he was fired by the legendary DC editor Denny O'Neil or Dennis O'Neil. I'm assuming you've heard of Denny O'Neil, Mark. He is like. He's basically the person who was responsible for Batman acquiring a more serious and darker tone in the 70s.
Yeah, he was the editor, right?
And he was the writer back then, but then he was the editor of Batman pretty much from this point until, I want to say, he goes all the way to like 2000 or something like that. He's the editor for a very long time. But apparently there's an interview that I read with Max Allen Collins in which he says I was the most hated Batman writer. But apparently Denny O'Neil really did not like what Collins was doing with the book. But he said that, like back in those days, remember, there was no email. Yeah. There was no... so he spoke to Denny O'Neil like 4 times in 4 months or something. Like he'd ring him like once a month or something like this. So he had no idea that Denny O'Neil was unhappy with what he was up to. Yeah. He also said he had absolutely no direction at all from the editorial team. Like he wanted a series Bible and a continuity guide, and none of these things were, like, he was just left to get on with it on his own. So I don't know if he's making excuses or what, but I mean,
him and Denny clearly had a massive personality clash.
Yeah, it seemed like they didn't see eye to eye, and he just wasn't the right fit.
And because Denny was so hands off, he actually he would cut material, but then not consult Collins about it. So that's his claim anyway, was that he would just, because he got nothing from the guy, the guy would just cut it without discussing things with him. They weren't a team. And then basically he said, you got to get out of here. And then he claims he walked away rather than being fired after seeing another artist get fired by him after a single issue.
So yeah, and that's the other thing that dogs this run a little bit, is that if you notice, the artist changes pretty much every week. Jim Stalin does 402, then it's somebody else on 403, then it's somebody else on 408, and somebody else on 409. Pretty much a different artist every week. So, that's another thing that Collins claims, that he couldn't really get anything like any creative chemistry going because they kept on changing the artist on him every week, or every month. Sorry, which must be difficult because a lot of the other writers, as we'll see, have a So Stalin was given Jim Aparo, who's obviously an amazing artist. So,
I mean, they worked together previously, hadn't they? Because
well, I think they're well known as a duo, Stalin and Aparo, right? So, okay, shall we get into this then? So we've got. I don't know if we're gonna go page by page, but 402 and 403. So these are interesting because they are the issues directly before year one, and this is a story essentially about an imposter Batman. There he is.
Yeah, he's just his great blonde face as well, isn't it?
Now, what did you make of this opening
story? I didn't actually. This didn't grip me. I wasn't I wasn't particularly enthralled with this. Not just because it does look pretty ridiculous, but I did think that although to be fair, I don't think it's the story so much that isn't grabbing me here, but I think he struggled to really make the panels particularly engaging. It's a lot of boxes that's going on. So whilst this character is, he also comes off as like a 2-bit character. So, he's not going to be around for that long. So I was waiting to get the juicy bit. It wasn't kind of a shock and awe opener for me anyway. Yourself?
Yeah, it was just a bit like, I thought that the art style was a bit old-fashioned. It was a bit kind of 1970s looking. That's what I thought.
You'll notice things like there's very little connection between the characters. So when he's fighting, you don't typically see any connections by any punches or anything like that. It's all in shadow or sort of he's swinging at something off panel and that sort of thing. As well.
One of the small things that I did like in the story, why I say it was the only real point of interest now that I'm looking over it, was the depiction of Vicky Vale essentially as a kind of social justice warrior style journalist, where she's trying to get Bruce to. Did that happen in this story? I'm sure I just saw Vicky.
I think it's this one, or
there she is. Look, he's not a hero. He's a brute, a fascist in a ridiculous costume. You're the real hero, Bruce. You have compassion for the Tommy Kamaras of this world.
I do. I do like that you've got that, and then that's contrasted with. Let me just see if I can find it here. There's like this big thing where she's talking about how she likes Bruce because he's got money, pretty much. He's in shape and he's got money. This is all she wants. Contrasting with that kind of SJW feel, I suppose.
No, that's the weird thing is that is Batman kind of going out with Vicky Vale at this time?
Yeah, he's gone out with her a couple of times, and I think because he snubs another reporter later on, and I'm not sure.
It's pretty. No, that is a pretty funny bit when we'll get to it. But let's get back to the issue then. So yeah, so these first two issues, just like a little 2-part story with this imposter Batman. Nothing of interest. I think you'd agree. Then now we get to the new origin story of Jason Todd. So this is where it's confusing, okay? Because if you can imagine being a regular Batman viewer, you'll have read this story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where Robin is Jason Todd. And then you'll read year 1, and then you come back, and now we're doing an origin story of Jason Todd.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's weird. And to make matters even more confusing, Jason Todd had an origin story back in the 70s or back in the early 80s, and this is just a new one, which retcons and fires that one out of canon. So this is the canonical Jason Todd origin story, still even today, I believe. And it was up to the much hated Collins to do it. And let me just see if I can zoom in a bit. How do I do that? Here we are. And we get this ridiculous Joker panel here. What happens, Mark? Can you remember?
Well, at this point he's stolen the smile of death, hasn't he? Which is the grand necklace, and he basically, I don't know if he kicks him or if he basically pushes him off the top of a building.
Oh no! If I'm remembering correctly, to make matters even more confusing, this Robin here is Dick Grayson.
Yes, this is the end of Dick Grayson's run.
So we're also watching the new version of the end of Dick Grayson as Robin. Now, I want to say in the old continuity, in the old Bronze Age, Batman like randomly fires him for some reason.
Does he?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I want to say he fires him, but in this version, the Joker, obviously, because it always has to be the Joker for some reason, injures him, and Robin ends up in hospital.
Yeah, and Robin himself is not too bothered about this. He just thinks that it got a bit out of hand, but Batman has a real crisis of conviction about whether or not he should have made a child into a muscular weapon and then gone out on the streets with him.
Now, considering that
at this point, I think,
considering that he has this pang of moral conscience about using children, as his sidekick, the speed with which he then takes on Jason Todd is insane from a character development point of view.
They claim that, but there's supposed to be a time jump in there. It's not really well communicated, but it's been a couple years basically, because what's supposed to have happened is what you miss is Batman takes a bit of a hiatus from playing with Robin. Robin goes off and joins the Teen Titans, and then becomes Nightwing and comes back in, and that's that one.
Right. So it's very confusingly done. So they're basically compressing a huge amount of time into like one issue here. We're skipping years in the space of but it's not explained. It's not explained.
I kind of joke. We'll obviously get to when the new Robin, Jason Todd, meets Nightwing later on, but it's amazing. It's shocking how suddenly he goes from this kind of muscular 19-year-old to like an absolute tank, looking like he's about 25. And yeah, that's supposed to communicate that there's been a big time jump in there.
Yeah, one thing I just will mention. I love the fact that the Penguin is often used as if like, oh, there's loads of villains that you've been fighting, and you're just cleaning up the scum, and we'll just, as a shorthand, we'll just chuck the Penguin in there. You understand what's happening?
Oh, we haven't seen a Penguin for a while. Let's just put one random shot of him getting punched across the face.
So yeah, there's more Vicky Vale action. She is depicted as being a bit of a floozy, I would say, isn't she? She's always ready to.
She's the sex appeal for this period of time, yeah.
But she's pretty shameless about it as well, I would say. So anyway, what's going on? Yeah.
So he goes to Crime Alley, and Batman's whole reason for going to Crime Alley is because it's where his parents were murdered, and so he comes back every year on the anniversary of it, and to clean it up again. And the criminals have got wise to this, and there's no one around, so they know not. And so he's basically talking to one of the residents here, who's, I think she just goes by Ma. Does she just go by Ma?
Her name's Ma Gunn.
Yeah, my gun.
Ma Gunn. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's more on her later.
She got Ma Gunn's School for Boys.
Yeah.
So she runs a school down Crime Alley, cleaning it up, and Bruce Wayne is
And she
is he a patron? No, she refuses.
He wanted to be a patron, and she said, "I'm independent, and I'm going to stay that way. Thank you very much."
And Vicky Vale is, she thinks that not fascist Batman, but Ma Gunn, that's the right way to go to clean up crime in Crime Alley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then yeah. So then we have this weird situation where Batman comes back to his car and finds, as you can see by the laughing, like that ha panel. It's just he's had all his tires, or the front two tires, nicked from his car. So it takes some stuff to do that, and it's our first introduction to Jason.
Can I just say I love the late 70s style pimps and thugs that hang out down.
Oh yeah, I've got some great pictures later on of Jason going back to beat up some pimps. Yeah.
So yeah, there's our first look of Jason Todd in the new continuity, or the new origin story of him. And he's a little juvenile delinquent. I mean, look how he's living.
Yeah.
So he's a 12-year-old kid, but he's surviving on his own in this really rough neighborhood. So, I mean, that's pretty. If you think about it, that's quite
pretty resourceful.
Yeah. So you can see what Batman sees in him, surely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Batman makes his excuses, but he sees a bit of himself. He sees a child on the same street where he lost his parents, who claims to have lost his own parents, and who's basically making it rough. And Batman sees himself in Jason, just without the money, without the safety net that he was provided, and it touches something within him, I suppose.
Now, one of the things about Jason Todd is that you can see here in this origin story, he's an angry young man.
He's belligerent.
He's belligerent and he's angry, and we just take a look at his angry face there. Anger.
He doesn't really smile for the whole of his thing. Like Dick Grayson, for his whole run, is kind of, he's the chirpy, he's the boy wonder. He's the one with the quips and the smile, kind of a little bit of a relic of Silver and Bronze Age Batman. And then you have the new Robin, who fans kind of hated.
Yeah, so we should mention that the 1987 fans who would have been reading this hated Jason Todd. They thought he was a little punk, basically. They hated the fact he disobeyed Batman so much. They thought he was a knob, as we'll get into. But what did you make of him as a 2020 man reading this back?
I thought he was a weak start. I don't think that his sort of this kind of strange, they kind of gloss over. If you move to the next sort of couple panels, they kind of gloss over when he's been taken under Batman's wing. But yeah, sorry, there's this whole section in the middle there. Which
by the way, Ma Gunn.
Oh yes, is actually like the head of a school for criminals. And she's, let's go get it, boys.
She smokes a cigar behind closed doors.
Oh yeah, and she's always correcting the boys' their elocution, whilst also being like, this is how to use an Uzi and stuff like that. And it's only spirits. Stop drinking like in my class. Stop smoking in my class. You can only drink spirits and smoke cigars.
So we're into Batman 409 now, and you can see just another kid on Crime Alley.
Yeah, so Batman's dropped Jason off because he believes Margun is a righteous pillar of the community, and Jason's now gone from a dangerous situation where he has to rely on himself to a worse one where he's being bullied by criminal youths on a daily basis.
Look at Margun. He's just
it's like some kind of Victorian spinster transported into sort of 60s 70s crime wave America.
I think the idea is that she's southern, right? She's like a southern.
Oh yeah, she's definitely got that kind of that southern accent, which I won't try and replicate.
So there's more. You can see that the different artists on each issue is a bit disorientating, isn't it? Because this is like the third or fourth different Vicky Vale and Bruce we've had, even in the space of like 3 issues, you know. So yeah, we keep on going. You can see
the rack of guns.
That's her lesson how to use what are the different weaponries you can use.
The next page where she's talking. Yeah, look at this one on the top right where she's basically, you can zoom in, but it basically is just control and scroll wheel, man.
Hold on, I have to plug in my mouse. I was trying to use the other thing. Okay, and I'll if there's any super chats come in, I'll pause at the end of this issue and we'll have a little look. Okay, right. Oh no, that's not working, Mark.
Control and scroll wheel, man.
Oh,
at the same time.
Okay.
Right.
But it's the page before.
No, you're on. Go forward 2 pages.
Okay, there we are.
Go. Right, yeah. There we go. And obviously, you can use the bar at the bottom to scroll across. And yeah, she's basically teaching them how to drink whiskey and speak right, and also smoke cigars while shooting up places. It's like, don't ever do dope. Like, Margun is based on marijuana. She's like Peter Hitchens.
Stick with the booze.
Stick with the booze, boys.
So, do you think that was Max Allen Collins? Is a little bit of left-wing politics coming in? You know,
quite possibly.
So, this panel here has been much criticised. I've seen online. People don't think that Batman should be leaning in this manner. That this is one of the things that Collins was criticised for. Was for this panel here that it's not in keeping with, when we read, next time when we read the Alan Grant, Norm Breyfogle Detective Comics, it was like Norm Breyfogle's Batman would never do that ever.
I'm quite curious why he appears to have lost his left tricep entirely in this panel as well. Look at the shape of that arm. It's too long, and it's just...
So, yes. I'll get back to the full.
So Jason goes back to boosting tires off cars because he can't be doing with this. Control and scroll wheel out.
Control.
You can do it. There you go.
Right. Good. Okay. Let's carry on, shall we? All right. So, yeah, Two-Face is involved because we learn somewhere that Two-Face, that Jason's dad worked for Two-Face, essentially, which you appear to have missed, but I caught.
I don't know if I'd say I missed it as much as it's been ages since I've read this particular one. But yeah, he, as far as I can tell, if I can...
And look at this insubordination here. Like hell, watch your mouth, says Batman. You can really see that, like, there is already a kind of this dynamic between them even before he's properly Robin. Worth mentioning, I reckon. I'm going backwards, am I?
Don't think so.
So here we go. So we've reached Batman 410, and this is now the training of Jason Todd.
So Jason gets taken. I thought this was kind of rushed, if I'm honest. Basically, they go from the end of him basically taking out the Margun school at a museum to suddenly he's the new Robin and he's done all his training and it's all completed, and there's very little character development. So there's no sense of him getting away from his belligerent streak either.
Look who's in the flashback.
The penguin again. Why? Why not?
Okay, so so this is the flashback of Todd's father being. No, this is the origin story. Yeah. No, this is the origin story of Two-Face.
Because and also Todd's father's involvement, and Batman decides to keep this from Jason because he thinks he's not ready to face that trauma yet. So he basically allows him to go toe-to-toe with almost everyone else, but then Two-Face starts making moves and they're kind of thrust into it without wanting to be.
Yeah, we should mention that Alfred is not really up for the Jason Todd idea.
No.
And constantly voices his concern.
Alfred, the voice of the fans.
Yeah, Alfred's thinking, is this a good idea? Like, this guy is 5 years younger than Dick Grayson, and he's a juvenile delinquent. Are you sure you've got what it? And
is this the smartest move you could be making, Bruce?
Listen to the hubris of Batman. I intend to channel the skills Jason brought with him. So he's basically saying, like, I'm backing myself here. I can do this. But actually, it's folly, isn't it? In the long run, we can see this is actually a mistake from Bruce.
We know here. We find out later on what Batman's real motivations were, despite what he tells himself. So it's also interesting. This I found really weird with this whole Two-Face arc as well. Is Two-Face's obsession with his obsession with chance is well known, but this is the only one comic I'm aware of where he's obsessed with the number 2 itself, by itself.
Yeah, and puns on the number 2 and things being double.
It's just very strange. And he's sending these Joker-esque calling cards using a pack of cards, which is obviously tied into the gambling theme. But it just seems very off, very strange idea.
So we get some time with, and he's got some twins working for him. These 2 goons here.
It's not just twins; it's 2 sets of twins.
2 sets of different twins.
Two pairs of twins. Yeah. So they have the world's largest roulette wheel, for some reason. But yeah, they're robbing a casino, and it doesn't go very well. Pretty much, Two-Face manages to get away, but they're ready to take him down. And this is I think it's 4 issues, is it? Where
two issues,
just 2 issues.
Yeah, but they kind of runs into the Margun stuff as well. It's kind of like one, so this is the roundup of this Two-Face story.
He robs a bank, and there's this whole thing that they're basically saying he's doing everything in 2s. We need to work out what the reference is. So he robbed the 2nd Street Bank and stuff like that, and then they're trying to work out what the casino was.
There was a bit of this which was incredibly 60s Batman, wasn't it? It was I think it was this bit here.
Yeah,
there were 2 casino guards hauling the money, blah blah blah. Then they figure out that it's like there's this baseball game going on, and it's the double header. And it's the second.
It's the second game, and it's like the top 2 teams in the state, and they're going like all these contrivances, and they catch Two-Face there. And as we see on the next panel, they end up in a big fight, and then whilst Batman's tidying things up, Todd gets beaten up. Basically, Robin gets beaten up, and Two-Face legs it through the middle of this game.
Yeah, and I think he's in for a bollocking now, isn't he, Jason Todd? It's like, what are you doing trying to take on Two-Face on your own? You're going to get creamed, essentially.
Yes. Although, like, just a moment on Two-Face's escape, which is again like the peak of bizarre contrivance.
He tackles player number 22.
I've just noticed that.
He gets safe on the second. He gets safe on the second base.
Yeah. All of this on the fly, and then there's like some bizarre rope ladder to a helicopter, or something that he uses to escape. And Batman's like, I can't go up this rope ladder. I'm just gonna wait here and then bollock Jason. That's the main thread.
Yeah, and this is where we get the bollocking. He said, "All right, Jason, it's time you explained yourself. I answer to nobody but me. Look at the face of defiance here."
Yeah, and the bomb.
Now, do you think there's any? Can you see, looking back, why the fans took against this guy?
Yeah, he's not very endearing. He's not doing much to kind of ingratiate himself with either the fans or the characters. Whilst I feel like he does kind of get a little bit back, he is clearly just not suited to the part.
So and then he finds out, look, Willis Todd, his father, Two-Face believed responsible, and now he's like, why the hell didn't you tell me? What is wrong with you, Batman? Just tell me things. And he was like, I was trying to protect you. Right. So he's already, like, given the relationship between Dick Grayson and Batman, this new Robin has not got off to the best start in his relationship with Bats. So, let's face it.
Absolutely not.
And then more of this world's largest roulette wheel business.
Yeah, and then and then you think, oh, maybe it's all right. Maybe Jason Todd is having this is the big character defining moment where he chooses to leave his belligerence behind. And
look, he landed on the number 2.
Oh my god, no. Oh.
So yeah.
No, I was just looking at the meta narrative of people thinking maybe he's turning a new leaf over. He saves Two-Face's life from. I have no idea what that ball would be made of, by the way. Like if it's concrete rolling around on there, but he saves Two-Face's life and they arrest him, and he seems to be turning over a new leaf, but he never really does.
So I'll just pause here to have a look for some super chats, but pretty much that is it for the Jason Todd origin story. As we'll see, there's a number of one-shot stories as Max Allen Collins is shown the daughter new opportunities, and Jim Stalin is brought in. But I mean, I think we should pause just to how do you feel about the setting up as Jason Todd's character and the new origin story?
It's reasonable. I just don't like Jason Todd.
I would say, I mean, I didn't object to it that badly. I thought there's weird tonal difficulties between.
I think. Yeah, there's the weird tonal shift between you've got this really serious story of this kid who's an orphan who's boosting tires in order to get by on Crime Alley, and then that contrasted with again the more serious side. Batman takes him under the wing. He trains him up. He's giving him this moral advice as well as the teaching and the learning stuff. And then you've got all these ridiculous campy elements like Margun smoking her cigar and telling kids to drink booze instead of smoke dope, and Two-Face and his obsession with the number 2, and all those contrivances. It's very campy in some places when it's trying to be serious, and then you've got this bratty kid who basically won't know he doesn't know he's born.
Yeah, I would say I would agree basically that there's the disjunction between the they're trying to do this more realistic, grittier Batman, but in the middle of it all you also have the giant. I mean, this this Two-Face story could be right out of the Silver Age, couldn't it? So there's that. And I would say that I think Collins rushed the story a little bit. He's trying to do too much in too short of space of time, and I would say that he made Jason Todd a little bit too dislikable, a little bit too. I mean, okay, I get that he's meant to be a messed up kid, but you've got to give us a reason to care for this guy as well. And I'm not sure that he does, because he's just always a knob. And this is something you'll find when we read the Mike Barr run on Detective Comics. That Jason Todd is pretty likable. He's a different writer, and I also think that the little bit of Jason Todd that we see, before he's killed when Stalin is writing him, is a tiny bit more likable than the way that Collins writes him. That's just my just my take.
We're giving away spoilers here.
Oh, come on, who doesn't know that Jason Todd was killed?
We're on our fourth Robin now. It's like something happened to him.
So just a couple of little super chats. Meganesia Shan says, talking about supernaturals, Storm Laura is spewing out jet fuel, electricity, and glass at this moment. And Hybris said, support from Australia. Sorry to hear about your cancellation, and have been following you since the Bantu and Sargon debated the commies. Well, that's a very long time ago indeed.
That must be referencing me, of course. That's totally addressed to me.
So let's get back to it then. So we now move into
filler story number 1.
Is this the last Collins story?
It's one of
them.
No.
Yeah. This is the last Collins story. So I think when Denny O'Neil read this, he was like, "That is it, Max. Get out of here. Go and work for bloody Dick Tracy. You have no place on the Batman main comic," because he introduced his own new villain, the Mime.
The Mime. In an episode known as The Sound of Silence.
So
and also the references to Simon to that song. Yeah, Simon and Garfunkel's song is just is layered throughout this one as well.
So we get a priest, a vicar. We're told that apparently every night Batman goes and lurks by this church in order to listen to the bells at 6 a.m.
Just it soothes him or something like that. It's the end of his vigil. So,
but tonight the bell doesn't ring
because someone copped the clapper.
So, and who's this? A mime artist in the middle of the street,
and everyone's chucking money at them. I mean, I'd never really got on board with your views on busking before AA, but if it's a mime.
Now, this stereotypical New York taxi driver, he wasn't very happy with what was going on.
So just can we appreciate the character design on the mime for a second and try and work out why they're dressed as a stripper?
So the mime, this guy is honking his horn. She doesn't like the noise, and she ends up shooting him in the face
with a silenced pistol.
To the gasps of random people there.
Can you imagine, like, you're just watching some insane SJW street performer who's blocked a road in protest and who is doing, whatever dance that they're doing, and someone honks at them and they just shoot them in the face? That would be a really bizarre situation to be in.
So Batman apprehends her by kneecapping her with the batarang.
It's just like, oh, and then looking sad. With a weird fishnet thing, and then it turns out she's got electrified gloves.
No, this did this did amuse me. The world's worst suspect lineup where they were all, and there look the casual Batman on the sofa again.
He's back, yeah.
So then we've what happens now? Vicky Vale is back. She takes an interest in the mime.
Yes,
in fact, she's done some homework, hasn't she, about who this person might be?
Yes, it's a grand story. She's actually very famous. She travelled and did, as most arts programs do. She had a travelling mime show that was basically for the appreciation of mimery, and then they closed her down, and so she's gone rogue.
Well, what happened was the Ronald Reagan's Republican, the Republicans cut her government funding.
Yes, and there's a huge amount in these comics about Ronald Reagan. It's just what's going on.
So Ronald Reagan inadvertently created the mime by cutting her government grant, and she couldn't sell enough tickets to her mime show.
Another strike against Ronald Reagan. Yes, and she's, she was her father as well. You'll notice on the left panel there was the fireworks king. And she decided that she wasn't going to be a part of her father's noisy enterprise and pursued Zen and the art of mime. And
in contrast to her noisy parents.
Yes, the ultimate rebellion, becoming a mime.
But then, aren't we told that her parents were blown up or something?
It's the next page, I think. Yeah. Like she did well, and then, or maybe like it is in there somewhere. Basically, her parents die in a fiery explosion at the fireworks factory, and yeah, it's that bottom left one down there. Yeah, and nice email there. Well dismissed.
Okay. So what else goes on?
So she decides she's going to stop a Sound of Silence metal concert, which is metal covers of Simon and Garfunkel, which is why is saying "Hello Darkness" in that middle panel there, and she's going to silence them forever, and does her acrobatics across the stage, electrocutes everyone, and lets them fall down. And then
there's a random random people saying Alice Cooper's bloodier. So she's killing people on stage, and they're still claiming that.
This particular Second Chances has a lot of pop culture references. I've noticed, generally speaking. So you've got the music stuff, but there's also stuff later on referencing Alien and stuff like that, which is interesting for a kids comic. But yeah.
So that's it. That's the end of Max Allan Collins. He was fired shortly after that episode. So what did we make of? I mean, first of all, do you think there is a missed opportunity with the mime? Okay, I mean, you could say what you want about this origin story, a bit cheesy, but was there any potential at all in this character?
None whatsoever. Well, can you conceive for me like anything they could do? They can't even collaborate with other villains because they're always silent.
Max Allan Collins in that interview was trying to spin it as that she was a prototype Harley Quinn.
Oh, really? I don't think
he was trying to claim credit as being she's kind of a bit like Harley Quinn.
It's truly one of the most garbage characters, as Chat might say. And then, of course, you've got this period now where they're looking for a new writer, but they haven't settled on one. So we get another month with another filler episode, The Ghost of Tahara, because by some random person called Duffy, I think is the author's name. He never comes back again.
Joe Duffy. And I think it might be a woman because it's J-O without the E. That's a woman, isn't it?
Yeah, it sounds like a woman.
I will say, you probably picked this out yourself. This is probably the single best panel in anything, though. How do I?
Yeah, it's in the bottom right. Control scroll wheel, my dude. Control scroll wheel. Wrong way. Next panel. There you go. There you go. Just imagine.
This is good because she's trying it on here, and he basically says, "No, I have to go and say hello to someone else." And look at that, a woman scorned.
A look of absolute disgust on this reporter's face.
She has been spurned. And then look who he's gone to see. It's Jason Todd. That's who he went to see, Jason. So, and also this is the one where he has the #1 superhero mug. Which,
yes,
people have since photoshopped with my mugs on there instead.
Oh, that reminds me. I have a panel that I want to show you. Where is it? Where have I put you? Someone has basically created a EJP has created a panel for you, and I think he's where on earth? Let me find it. You carry on. I'll find it.
Okay, so I mean, this is a rubbish. I would say this is probably the worst single issue, on the basis that it's just such a nothing story. What was it? This guy from the museum was kind of in on it.
Basically, the caretaker of the exhibit was in on it, and they were replacing. Basically, they made a big thing out of the ghost so that everyone would think they're trying to steal the armor, when in reality they're actually they're stealing and then replacing the period costumes that are in other exhibits.
Didn't think it was much cop at all. But then now is the start of the Jim Stalin run, and talk about a shift in tone.
Yeah, I mean, it's brutal, absolutely brutal shift.
We start with victims as part 1 of the dumpster killer trilogy, and I mean, yeah, this woman gets killed and put into a dumpster.
So AA, I want you to, before we get into this story, I want you to accept my screen sharing. You ready?
Yeah.
So you read this. He was an English professor, talented, but didn't have a lot of friends. There's that funny Professor Crane again. He's so funny looking, like a scarecrow. They laugh at me because I'd rather spend money on books than on fancy clothes or stupid parties. But if I could use my books to get money, then they wouldn't laugh at me. They'd fear me. And he's reading Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell.
Very good work. Very good work indeed. Okay, so let's carry on because we're going far too slowly, Mark.
It's been an hour. It's been an hour.
Yeah, we need to pick up the pace a little bit because we've got more to get through. Where is it? Okay, so so this is victims now. Batman befriends this woman who is a 26-year-old social worker helping the poor down in the streets.
Well, it's not Batman so much. He rescues her as Batman, and then he comes across her as Bruce Wayne, and they get to know each other. And all the while, Batman is searching for this dumpster killer who's killed 3 women already and dismembered them.
Yeah, and he thinks it's this guy called Frank Cutter.
Yeah,
this man here,
Frank Cutter Thompson, or whatever his name is,
recently released from jail. Frank Cutter Thompson. Batman just assumes it's him. On the logic that anything with a number 2 has to do with Two-Face, so therefore anything Frank Cutter touches
must be cut. Yeah,
must be cut. Yeah.
And so as Batman, he's investigating this Cutter guy, and then as Bruce Wayne, he's making friends with this socialite, and they make sure to make it not a romantic attachment, which I thought was interesting.
And this is grim. Look at that, grim.
And then he goes to the next crime scene of the next dumpster killing, and it's her head in the in the dumpster, and suddenly it's very, very personal. for Bruce, which is otherwise relatively forgettable story suddenly becomes really good. And this is the start really of when Batman starts having these kind of strong personal connections to many of his cases. A lot of the other stuff, it's kind of tangential. Two-Face is doing X, or Penguin is doing Y. But now we're at the point where they seem to be able to write in a way for him to be connected to it personally in almost every issue, which is quite nice to see because it makes it more engaging.
So a good start from Jim Stalin here. I mean, just based on this first issue versus the Max Allan Collins, do you think Stalin is better? Or
it was definitely a very abrupt shift in tone. But for the better, I'd say. I think it's very well written and very well directed, and I did enjoy what I would consider to be otherwise a very forgettable story becoming a lot more.
And of course, we get the Jim Aparo art now as well. For many people, this is Batman. Jim Aparo's Batman is Batman. So I think that's probably worth mentioning, because he wrote him for he did the art for such a long time that a lot of people, it's either Jim Aparo or Norm Brayfogle who we'll be looking at next time. So
although interestingly, as you the covers, as you see, the cover on the right is usually a guest cover that other artists are cutting their teeth on, which is really interesting because you see that Todd McFarlane does a few of them. Those of you who don't know who Todd McFarlane is, he created Spawn. You know Spawn?
Yeah.
He was kind of like a fusion between. He was responsible for a lot of the art around Venom in the Spider-Man, the Spideyverse, and it wasn't allowed to use the character for himself. So he created Spawn as a fusion of his work on Batman and Venom.
Interesting indeed. Well, we now get this tie-in story with the Millennium, which was some crossover arc that was going on.
Oh, this is a bad story.
No, this is just randomly involved. But essentially, Jim Gordon has been turned into a robot or something like this.
It's the Manhunters, but it's not the Martian Manhunter of the comics now, or if it is, it's a precursor to it, where they're just a kind of episodic villain. It's very.
But there's the Scarecrow, who was just mentioned. I think it was from this that I got that screenshot. Was it? Maybe not. This was I mean, I don't think there's even worth spending any time on this, is there?
Well, the only thing to note is that Batman gets angry at Jason again because Jason is supposed to be doing reconnaissance on the Scarecrow whilst Batman deals with punching Jim Gordon's doppelganger. But instead, Jason decides to smash a load of fear gas and basically turn the Scarecrow into a wreck and beat him up.
And he brings him in. So kind of angry with him as if to say, well, okay, you brought him in, but that's not the point.
Yeah, insubordination in it. We got to trust each other, and we can't.
Yeah, and he hasn't learned his lesson from last time. If you remember, before he tried to apprehend Two-Face on his own, and he got his arse handed to him. So it's like, okay, you've got the better of Scarecrow this time, but next time he might get the better of you, type thing. So
it does turn into a MacGuffin where Batman basically takes the fear gas grenades off Robin and uses them to gas a prison so that he can get through to Jim, but it doesn't. It's a bit weird. And then there's this whole bizarre thing with the Floronic Man, which is never really expanded upon because it's continued in another comic. So that's about it, really.
Yeah, I don't know why they. I had no interest in following up with this either. I just didn't care at all. So now we're on White and Gold Truth, Batman 416, and spoilers alert, everyone. I thought this was the best single issue that we're going to read tonight, because this is where we get the return of a certain Dick Grayson.
We do.
So
here we have Todd once again jumping the gun on some criminals who are waiting for a delivery of criminal goods, and he basically decides to jump in and beat them up before it's arrived, and so he has to be saved by Dick Grayson here in his epic sort of slightly look. He sort of looks like he should be on some sort of glamour rock concert stage, doesn't he? With that enormous collar. It's very Dracula-esque, and he comes in and they fight together. But Jason Todd has no idea who Nightwing is. That's another thing. Batman has told him nothing of the former Robin.
Yes. So yeah, and he's kind of taken a little bit aback, isn't he? The fact that he hasn't even mentioned there was a Nightwing to him. Now Bruce is working out, and Nightwing comes and confronts Batman, essentially. Now what happens? Now I thought this was really interesting because this is the first time that Dick Grayson has even spoken to Batman after being released from hospital, because effectively Bruce replaced him without even telling him, which is pretty cold, isn't it? I mean,
and not only that, because he decided to go away because it's such a bizarre situation for Nightwing, because the whole reason he was pulled out of the field, taken off active duty, was because couldn't bear the thought that he'd made a younger partner come to harm, effectively. And then all of a sudden he's taken someone 5 years younger than Dick was when he started and thrown him into it all. And not only that, an incredibly damaged youth. So
I like this flashback to all of their previous history together.
Yeah,
that's the entire Silver Age and Bronze Age in there in one panel.
You're also starting to see the kind of development of a nice, a more interesting panel style. There's a lot of stuff in the older comics of just kind of character facing character, and now we're starting to see a lot more of like these dynamic shots, a lot more weather, the kind of faces in the background and that sort of thing. Yeah.
But I found this, I mean, I actually got choked up a little bit because look at his face. I mean, we were the dynamic duo, don't you remember? And then this is him like, oh, look at all our adventures together. Bruce, don't you remember? And it's just like, look at him. He's just cut him off. You haven't seen him for 18 months.
And he's angry about it as well. You know, it's Batman's angry and refusing to engage. And then, of course, he's remembering everything as well.
And then, of course, we get another flashback to him going to hospital.
Then Alfred basically gave him a little bit of money, but he cut himself off from all that as well. And then he went off to form his own thing.
He says, I lay there with a bandaged shoulder and my life in ruins. You smiled, kicked a great big hole in my life, then walked out of the room. You couldn't even bother to say goodbye. I mean, and look, he hasn't even got anything to say. And this is one of the things I love about Batman, Mark. He's so male, isn't he? He's so. This is so like.
Yes.
It's so like he's going to bottle it in and not talk about
it. This is why I hope that you'll learn from these comics and this panel about what will happen should you ever abandon me. That's what.
So yeah, then he basically goes off and forms the Teen Titans. Yeah, to get like direction in life and things like that.
Let me pull up whilst I'm here, because there's a really interesting at the end of chapter, like it's jumping ahead, but it's a reminiscent section from Jim Aparo at the end of A Death in the Family, chapter 4 or whatever it is, the fourth issue. Anyway, we just load this archive. He gives his thoughts on what happened when they wanted to create Nightwing. So Here we are. So he said it was 20 years since he had created Dick Grayson, but basically, who is this? Marv Wolfman. This is who created Dick Grayson, and he says it was 1983. They wanted Robin back, and they wanted to de-age him because obviously Dick Grayson had been getting older, and he felt like he needed to still do something with Dick Grayson. So why couldn't the Bat title simply create a new Robin? I changed Dick's hero name in the Titans to something else, which became Nightwing. He'd grown up and would now want his own name after all, while DC could call attention to the Bat titles by introducing a brand new younger Robin. It was a win-win scenario. So the character of Jason Todd was introduced and a new Robin was born. I never did... not long afterwards, I moved to Los Angeles. Time moved on, continents rose and sank, and the next thing I knew, it was 1988, and Jason Todd had been murdered, and I didn't know what to think about this. So, yeah, and the reason Two-Face is so heavily involved in all this is because, again, it was his favourite villain. So there you go.
So to get back to this now, so he's remembering, Dick Grayson goes off and forms the Teen Titans. Here are all these essentially the Teen Titans are a bunch of minion sidekicks who've been cast off by their respective.
Well, several of them are, but there's two there, Cyborg and Raven, who do go on to have their own standalone stuff, which is worth noting. But the others are very forgettable. Yes.
So he's basically like leading his C show kind of gang as the leader of the Teen Titans, and then
I love this paneling here.
Yeah, and then this is where this gets truly epic, doesn't it? We've done pretty well for ourselves, and he's like, "Did you even take any note of what we're doing?" And he was like, "Yeah, I saw your group in action when they teamed up with Outsiders. Remember?" And then he's like, then basically he had to learn from the newspapers that there's a new Robin.
Yeah, and you can imagine how angry you'd be.
Right. Now look at this is epic. This was so good when I was reading the man who couldn't handle the responsibility of having a 19-year-old partner suddenly decides it's all right to take on a sidekick. Yeah. I think I have the right to know why. That's not an easy question to answer. Why the hell don't you take the damn mask off and give it a try? This was epic. This is so epic. And then he says, "The truth is, Nightwing, I taught you everything I could. It was time for you to step out on your own." And he's not having that. He says,
"No, he says rubbish." Basically,
you figure out the best thing for you to drive me out of your life, right? That's exactly what you do to anyone who gets close to you, Bruce. Always hurt them before they get a chance to hurt you. It didn't matter that you didn't have any other life other than the one we shared. You're really something. You're a piece of work, aren't you? So he's really pretty pissed off because he's like, that was his whole life. And
it's also like the first time we see Batman getting absolutely wrecked by someone he loves. Like it's not just battering. There's that kind of knife in the heart. It's like, you stab me. I'm letting you know what's happened. And now I'm stabbing you back now, basically. And there's nothing you can do about it.
And basically what I love about this is he's like, I'm not having that. That's just bullshit post hoc rationalization from Batman. He's like, bollocks, that's the reason. Shut up, tell me the truth. And then he keeps on going, why the new kid? His name's Jason. And then he tells him the story about the stealing of the tires. Yeah. I really believe that if left on his own, the boy would be dead by now. Hard times have given him no great abundance of self-esteem. And still, he's like, I could have given him a more
still
positive.
Not good enough, yeah.
Bull, absolutely not having it at all.
Yeah. How about the truth for a change, Bruce?
And I just thought this was so good. These characters.
It's those pauses, though, man, as well. Like those single panels where there's no dialogue, and you've just got the characters looking at each other, and he's just like, Batman needs a Robin, and he's like, I said I wanted the truth, Bruce. And he's like,
and look,
dare you talk to me like that?
Look at
and he
that.
smashed the.
Batman snaps here. He absolutely snaps.
He's so angry. And
do you know I'm talking about the masculinity, Mark?
Yeah.
This is Bruce snapping, right? Because he's got no answers here. He knows he's just been caught out.
He knows he's absolutely screwed. So it's like aggression, peak aggression, and then the next thing smashes his own table, and then he's just like boom, and then these four things where the only thing that changes apart from the text is the expression on Dick's face throughout the whole thing, and he's like, "I missed you," and get out. Now get out. I missed you. All right, now get out. And that's again peak masculinity, isn't it? Goodbye, Bruce.
What I love about that is that Batman is so masculine. It took him 18 months to say that, and then he was like, "Right, I can't see you anymore now. The emotion's too much."
Yeah. Chat is saying he Jordan Petersoned him. It's just another whiny Robin moment.
So
he's a jilted lover, jealous ex vibes.
I just thought this was amazing, really amazing. So
definitely a high point.
Yeah,
for this section.
and then basically, Nightwing's like, right, basically, I'm gonna have to go and help Jason because God,
he doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, and also Batman is a difficult man to say the least. So he basically goes and says, "Listen, Bruce is not a good talker. Basically, he is not good for having a little heart to heart or anything like that. He's not going to give you those moments, but I'll be there," type thing. If you ever want to have a chat, basically, which is very nice of him.
I don't think he ever takes him up on it, but he does.
No, I don't think he does take him up on it. I think, but it's just nice that he extends the olive branch, despite the fact that he's pretty gutted that he's been replaced. So,
well, I think he recognizes that in a way he's been kind of beholden to Batman's wishes, to Bruce's wishes for his entire life, and suddenly he's got his own life now, and he's independent of that, and he can stand on his own. But he recognizes that Batman will drag along Jason and mold him in a way in which it may not be the healthiest, to say the least. And it's
Mark, one day this is going to be you and Squire Turnip having this conversation.
Squire Turnip. Oh God, no. The turnip merchant.
Let's keep on going. So and then randomly, just whacked on the end of this.
Yes,
for no reason.
A worse story than the mime, and one in which Batman is effectively a villain for this whole thing. So you I love his bespoke prison suit.
So Penguin's going back to Blackgate Penitentiary or whatever it's called, Gotham State Prison, or because Penguin is the one criminal who doesn't go to Arkham. He goes to.
He's not mad. He's just
he's just a criminal. So, and there's even a panel where it's explained that Penguin has been inside so often that he's allowed to wear this 1930s bespoke kind of old school prison outfit.
He's also bribed enough people, to be fair. I just like how rotund he is, like as far as it goes.
But Penguin, when he's inside, falls in love with this woman who has an obsession with eggs.
And she's talking about nests, and if you talk about like the greatest animated kisses of all time or drawn kisses, that one on the right there where he's basically sucking her face off.
No, one of the things I like is that Penguin's new squeeze is about 2 feet taller than her, so he's kind of
taller than him.
And
she's a proper kind of prim and proper, and it's like the most insufferable relationship where they're constantly calling each other Snooky and stuff like that.
But she wants him to go straight. So he decides to set up Gotham Umbrella Works.
Yeah.
He sets up his own factory, and then
Batman's like, what's going on here? It seems to also be entirely staffed by ex-convicts. So he's like, there's loads of gunmen outside, and Batman's very suspicious.
So essentially, what happens here is that Penguin tries to go straight to, because his new love life wants him to go straight. Batman doesn't believe that he could go straight, and effectively just goes and wrecks it for him. I mean,
yeah, but Batman comes in, beats everyone up, and then Penguin pretends that he's got his umbrella rifle or rocket umbrella or whatever, and suddenly he's like, oh, actually, it turns out that this is a completely legitimate business. We actually do produce umbrellas. This isn't a weapon, and I'm hiring ex-cons because no one else will. But this violates my parole because it's seen as associating with the other convicts, and so he gets forced to take him back to prison.
I mean, what sort of message is that, Batman? He's basically wrecked Penguin's chance.
And what I expected was that Batman here, this would radicalize or Penguin, or his new love interest would be like, I don't believe you. I can't believe you would do something like this and end up back in prison. So I'm leaving you. And this would put Penguin back on the path to crime. But no, in the last thing, it's like he's actually got a new lease on life. And he's sitting there and still seeing his love interest. And it's like completely benign.
I can't believe. I mean, the Penguin literally did want to go straight, and Batman wrecked it for him because he's too cynical. Nice one, Bats.
Chat saying, I remember the Penguin test was an important feature of Dictator Top Trumps. Arkham Asylum or normal prison.
Oh yes, indeed. Yeah, would they go to? Did we do that in Dictator Top Trumps? Would they go to Arkham or would they go to normal Penguin prison? Yeah, indeed. Okay, so why don't we?
So that's second chances. Yeah.
Right. Now we need the next one we went to do was Batman: The Caped Crusader Volume 1.
Yeah.
Now we don't need to spend that long on each of these things. There's one story arc here that goes on for an interminable amount of time.
Yeah.
Which we don't need to. I don't think we need to go panel by panel exactly, but
I want to share some peak things from this one. So I've got a collection of screenshots here. Thank you, Guy. This says here, Leonard, call for ambulances. Lots of ambulances. Everyone else to the kitchen. This is basically the storyline of this first Batman comic is 10 Nights of the Beast.
Yeah, and I'll just share my screen so you can see the front cover. Batman 10 Nights of the Beast. It's a 4-part arc. I believe there was actually a trade paperback of this, but this is
it's dire.
Kind of turgid Cold War era stuff here.
As if you'll notice, there is so much text on every page because they have to explain so much stuff in exposition that it is like a constant deluge of info dump, and it's very very dry.
This character here is known as the KGB Beast, but
you'll notice as well that he's got like a relatively sane costume in that one. He basically, if I can find it here, Caped Crusader stuff. We will have to go through a lot of these, but if I can find correct panel. Oh yes, there's some ridiculousness along this one. He basically just has a complete, I can't find it, but I do have there's the new Batmobile, which has changed, by the way. It's just nonsense. But it basically has a gimp suit costume that he wears for most of this. It's like this really serious Cold War thing with Ronald Reagan and this sort of multi-agency defense team, including Batman, who they don't want to be there but is, and the Beast assassinating various members of the public. But he's just dressed in this purple gimp suit. It's very strange. Yeah.
So let's just. I mean, we don't have to pause much on it.
No,
I found this whole story really dull.
Duller than horse shit. Yes.
It was so boring. So yeah, I mean,
show off his costume.
Yeah, there's the gimp. There's the gimp suit on the KG Beast. Now, for me,
this Mexican wrestler. Yeah,
this whole arc brought Stalin's batting average down for me. I thought he was generally doing pretty well, but I did not.
To me, it brought his down, but it brought up my opinion of
Max Allen Collins.
No, the artist.
Oh, Jim Aparo, yeah.
Aparo, sorry, yeah. I don't know where I got Starro from, because even throughout this, there are some panels which are really quite gorgeous. As you go, oh, I love this. Go back one page. I love that this story reaches. It's supposed to be a really serious sort of spy story, and yet, next page, mate. We get to the point where his accomplice, the KG Beast's accomplice, is hang gliding himself in wearing a suicide vest in order to blow up the president of the United States. So it's quite a strange scenario going on.
I do. I mean, speaking of Aparo, I do like these moments where it's just like no speech. He does that really well, doesn't he? Like we saw it in the Nightwing issue just now, and here he is doing it again. Look, it's just like,
he's really cool. Good at those passing moments, I suppose you'd call them. And then he goes on and basically ends up in a big fight. And you might see, so where Collins was saying that he considered the Mime to be the precursor to Harley Quinn, this is clearly the precursor to a kind of Bane-esque storyline.
Yes.
The assassin who's really muscular, who can go toe-to-toe with Batman, who is willing to cut off his own hand. He cuts his own hand off to escape Batman at one point, and he has it replaced with this ridiculous prosthetic arm, which is one part bayonet and one part gun. And Batman kicks it once and it makes it jam, and that's why he can't use it as a gun for the rest of it. And then we have the darkest ending, though, to this thing. Batman, the man who won't kill, goes to fight him, and he says, well, at one point I would have fought you, but I'm not going to do that now. And you can see in that right-hand side that he basically and I really love, as I say, Aparo's work on the top panel where he's shutting the door. He shuts the door and locks him in and starves him to death. And that's Batman. He doesn't tell the authorities where he is. He just outright.
That is killing, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I believe. I mean, spoilers. I don't think KG Beast dies because he's brought back. I was telling you this before we started, wasn't I?
He becomes a D-lister, does he?
He becomes like a kind of jobber. Like in the world of wrestling, they often used to a big threat would come in, right, to face Hulk Hogan, but after they'd been around for like a year or 2 years, they'd slide down the card, and then they were just kind of there to put over new and up and coming stars. And the KG Beast, as the 90s continues, because he's kind of big and a credible threat, he's kind of used for that. In fact, I want to say, I could be wrong, but I think Bane may take out the KG Beast at one point.
Probably, that would be a poetic. I think. I just want to share, as I say, a few of my favorite little panels from this. I'll just whiz through them. So it's no, you're right. There you go. So you've got Batman disguised as a security guard, but wearing his cowl underneath the rubber mask of the security guard. So he's Bruce Wayne wearing a Batman costume, wearing another costume on top. It's just quite amusing. And yes, the whole point is that they're trying to keep the KG beast from assassinating Ronald Reagan, which was just a bizarre twist in of itself. This is the suicide bomber saying, "All will be in order. The king of the capitalist piss dies tonight." Pigs, sorry, not piss.
Yeah.
We have suicide mission, a close up on the hang glider, which Batman then appropriates in a future story to use hang gliders, which I thought was quite funny. That's another one of that. And then, yes, him saying, "I'm not in this business to protect the rules. I serve justice," as he locks someone in a room with the full expectation that they will die slowly over a couple of weeks. It's just ridiculous. But yeah, there you go. So that's the end of that arc, I suppose.
So now we go into the next chapter of this dumpster killer thing. I don't know why we had to wait so many issues for it. But
they kind of jump in between twice, don't they?
Yeah. But now he's gone back to try to find out who all of these women have been killed by the dumpster killer. It wasn't Frank Cutter Thompson. Goes and visits this tramp. There's so many tramps in these old stories, as we'll get on.
Yeah, they really love the homeless problem.
Yeah, there's this random Japanese guy. What happens here? I can't. It's been a while since I read this one. They find this guy. Basically, it's this guy. He thinks it's this chap here. So then we get on to the next part of the story, and we're down to these are the people who are behind the dumpster killings, right? Is that right, Mark?
Yeah, these two. Although it's primarily one guy, and the reason that they don't like them is women are making men soft.
Yeah, he's like a misogynist. He's like a MGTOW or something.
Says no one knows what it means to be a real man anymore. Them broads is turning everybody into a bunch of wimps. All this women's lib crapola has got everyone mixed up.
So he's kind of like a vigilante
academic agent. Yeah.
No. Hold on. Okay. So, what did you make of the? I thought the first part of this story was the best part, and I didn't care much for the conclusion. What were your views?
I thought it was a very disappointing conclusion. I thought they were trying to make because it was a big story. You know, it took place over several issues. It was unresolved. It comes back, and then they kind of snip it off. Yeah. They snip it off really easily here, where Batman doesn't actually deal with them. The sister of one of the victims finds him and slits his throat with a razor blade.
Yeah, so he's done in by the feminists, essentially.
Yeah, and then he's visited by all the ghosts of his victims as he dies, and then dies. And Batman's like, she did it wrong. That's basically the end of that.
I was kind of hoping that he'd be a supervillain. I don't know, but my tastes generally are like, I'm always disappointed when it's just like a bloke.
A regular bloke. I think this is very much an era. I mean, even with the KG Beast, he wasn't kind of a supervillain. He was just a super assassin in a ridiculous costume for most of it. And then this one, it turns out to be just a regular serial killer. And this whole Caped Crusader thing, as I say, there's none of the Rogues Gallery do not make an appearance throughout this entire thing. It's all very, I guess, what you might describe as grounded criminals for the whole run.
Yeah, and that's them trying to be in keeping with Frank Miller's year one, isn't it? Where, I mean, there are no supervillains in year one either. It's just all grounded, everyday street crime type stuff. And you don't see, I mean, Joker has a few appearances, doesn't he? But Joker tends to crop up for major storylines. Like, as we'll see in Death in the Family in a moment, Joker turns up then because something big needs to happen. But generally, like, we don't get Joker Caper of the Week type stuff happening. Penguin has turned up just for that annual for some reason. In a throwaway story. I had a look. The Riddler does not make an appearance in the regular Batman comics between 1986 and 1990. There's not. We saw Scarecrow, but even that Scarecrow was kind of an incidental appearance. It wasn't like a proper Scarecrow story. And we have seen Two-Face. But I guess of all of the supervillains, Two-Face is the most grounded because he's just like a bloke, essentially.
Yeah, former prosecutor gone mad, isn't it?
Yeah. So anyway, now we have this random annual they've thrown in. I thought this was just nothing at all.
The Slade's demon thing.
Yeah.
It's a murder mystery, but I didn't understand a lot of it. Someone is someone's son, who's someone's father, who was having an affair with someone else, and this whole thing. And I thought it was again going to be one of these more grounded things. Although, if you look back at the house there, I have needled Mr. D about that house, claiming that that's where he wants to live.
The architecture,
yeah.
Is that Solomon Grundy?
No, that's the caretaker, a chap called Mr. Stewart. And there's this whole underlying theme that the guy who previously owned the house he tried to do a ritual to Satan, and it didn't work out. And you think, it's just a nutter. And then at the end of the episode, when the house goes up in flames, there's like this big Satan that comes out of the thing and then slowly disappears. And everyone's going, I guess the ritual did have some premise then.
Why did DC bother throwing in these like random stories from annuals and things?
I think a lot of the time it's filler, and it's also if the author is taking a break, they're going on a holiday or something, you get a guest author in, and you don't want them really to write anything which messes with the continuity. So you get these kind of bizarre stories.
And we got this backup featuring this Jason Todd in school with a bully with "Here's the beef" written across his chest. So that was that. That's a bit of a throwaway as well. So now we're back. Wasn't this the Todd McFarlane cover?
It's the Todd McFarlane cover, and you can see the, as you say, this. Well, I suppose Spawn took inspiration from this, but you can see the similarity, a lot of jagged edges, and the general style of it. I do like that cover though. That's one of the top ones.
And then, so what goes on? I can't even remember this one.
This is a filler one where you have four cops or three cops recounting their different experiences of Batman. So there's one where he saves a kid who's committing suicide. There's one where he beats the crap out of some, again, gimp suit clad drug addicts. And then there's another one where he finds two orphans in the street and adopts them. And he cries, and then the police officers don't believe that Batman could ever cry. That's the extent of this one. And Alfred makes a comment on this, saying, what's going on?
Well, one thing I'll say about Alfred, I can't remember where it was, but I did appreciate Alfred saying that Batman was going on too much about the old Robin. That was a good Alfred interjection, I thought, because it showed how considerate he was and how inconsiderate and masculine Batman continues to be. Insensitive Batman, not realizing that going on about the old Robin might be bad for Jason Todd's development. So, okay. Now we have, is this where we're getting up to Death in the Family now. I think this is the last regular issue before that. I can't remember this one either. What goes on here?
This is the one where there's it's just a self-contained story. Although look at that car. Go back a page and look at what's happened to the Batmobile again. It's just every single time my baby gets emasculated,
That's pretty bad, actually. Yeah.
Basically, there's a drug lord, and he's beating a woman, and they get him arrested, but he walks on a technicality because Batman provided the evidence or something.
There is some very significant character development for Jason Todd here, though, isn't there? I seem to remember.
So basically, they get really angry at this character because he when he knows he's getting out, he calls the woman within earshot of Batman and Robin because he's taunting them, and calls to say he's going to be over to her place. And by the time they arrive, as you can see on the next page, she's hung herself. And this makes Jason very, very angry. And you don't see what happens, but you see he swings down to the apartment of this villain. And the next panel is...
His name's Felipe. Yeah.
Felipe, yes. Is just him tumbling down many stories to his death. And Jason says, I must have startled him. He slipped. And then swings off silently whilst Batman broods and goes, fuck.
That's what we call a heel turn in wrestling, is it not? That's a heel turn from Jason Todd there. He's just murdered a man.
Yeah. And we know it, and Batman knows it, and it's awful. So this is the next story, which is about the father of that villain, Felipe, coming for his revenge on Jason. I don't know why, but this entire panel seems to... The colorist seems to be in love with the color orange throughout this entire section. But yeah, go on.
Yes.
He kidnaps Commissioner Gordon, and Batman goes alone, or so he thinks, to the junkyard in order to rescue Commissioner Gordon, takes out a load of people, and then he gets really angry. The father is really justifiably angry that his son has died, and he's shooting at Batman, and a whole row of cars falls and crushes him to death. And Batman basically saying to Jason, look what happened, pretty much on the basis of your actions.
And look, there he is, walking off at the end there, which sets us up quite nicely, doesn't it, for death in the family. Although there's more to Batman Crusader, if I can remember. There's a few other loose ends on Jim Starlin's run, but we'll have a little pause to go to death in the family. Here we go, and I'll just share my screen again. Here we are. Can you see that?
Yeah, and that's a powerful image, isn't it?
So that's one of the most famous front covers, I believe. Here is death in the family.
Sad Batman.
Yeah, sad Batman indeed. So essentially, Jason Todd's gone a bit rogue here. This killing of Felipe is in the background of.
I would say this is as powerful a moment, or if not more powerful than your Nightwing enjoyment. This particular run, especially the end.
The whole story of Death in the Family, you mean? Oh yeah. I mean, I would. Death in the Family is famous, right? It's of all of the bits we've covered, probably the least obscure thing that we're covering.
Yes,
today.
It's important. It's important to know this story is actually in the shadow of its kind of spiritual predecessor, which is. And in fact, really, there's the two, because Nightwing only came about because Joker shot Dick Grayson in the shoulder, right?
Yeah.
But this is also post killing Joke, so that's when Barbara Gordon is shot in the spine and paralyzed and raped by Joker and his goons, and then Commissioner Gordon is forced to sit through a ride where he's subjected to the images of that moment, and Joker's trying to prove the point that he could drive Commissioner Gordon insane and make him kill him. And it doesn't happen. So Batman has already suffered 2 major hits at this point from Joker.
Yeah,
3.
and I think a lot of continuity nerds agree that Killing Joke and this happen in the same year and really close to each other. So this is a bad year for Batman. It's like his annus horribilis, as they say. It's a bad time in general because he's
annus horribilis.
Yeah, isn't that what they call it?
I don't know, but I'm amused that a horrible anus is what's used to describe this.
So Joker's out of jail.
I know that anus is annual. Like,
yeah, it's just horrible. Yeah. So Joker's escaped Arkham again, and is wearing trendy shades,
and he's broke. I don't actually very much like the art direction on this Joker's face, but that's just a little nitpick.
Oh, this is a classic Jim Aparo, very long chin Joker. Very long chin.
Maybe it's just something about this one. But he basically has a cruise missile that he's sourced from somewhere that is MacGuffined in there. And he's going to sell it because he needs to. But the only place he can sell it is the Middle East. So he's off to Lebanon.
Joker's off to Middle East to sell a cruise missile. Meanwhile, Jason Todd is wondering about his family. And specifically stumbles on the fact that his mother is not really his mother. The person who he thought was his mother.
He finds his birth certificate and his mother's name is smudged off but begins with an S. And he always thought it was a woman named Carolyn. So he's very concerned.
Yeah, and so he basically Joker goes off to the Middle East. Batman kind of is getting wind of the fact that the Joker's off to the Middle East. But also, at some point, does he do it here? Jason narrows down that his mother could be one of 3 women in the world. One of them is literally Lady Shiva. One of them is someone called Shaman Rosen, and one of them is Sheila Hayward. And one of the particularly strange things about this is that, of course, I mean, with respect, Jason Todd could figure out that he's not like mixed race, so he's not like one. He could surely cancel out one of these women straight off.
Don't you be putting your logic in here, man?
I know. I'm just saying he could have just it's probably not that one. So anyway,
well, to be fair, he does eliminate the least likely choice first.
So then we go off to the Middle East.
So go back a little bit. Batman himself works out that Joker not only being out, but he has nuclear arms. And this moment on the left here, which is raising the stakes because he's in a bit of a panic. He drops his Geiger counter. And this is the first time where I've seen the Batmobile as well, where the eyes of the cowl have become the headlights.
So we continue. We're off to Lebanon. Batman's on the trail. Doesn't he tell Jason to stay behind, or as Jason says, I'm off to find my mother or something? But
well, he knows he's got two problems. Jason has said, I'm out of here. After the whole killing the criminal thing, he basically finds out about his mother by himself. He goes for a walk, and he gets a load of mementos from someone on Crime Alley who knew his parents somehow. So then he finds out about his mother, and he decides he's going to go find her, whether Batman likes it or not. And really, it's none of Batman's business. So he goes off. Alfred says he's found the letter from Jason saying he's gone off on his own, and Batman is torn because he's basically like, do I stop a nuclear apocalypse or go after my errant son, effectively? And he has to choose the nuclear option.
Yeah, of course, he goes after the Joker. not after the 14-year-old boy she's put at risk. And so it just chance would have it that the Joker happens to be going to the same place that one of the women who Jason Todd's mother might be also happens to be. I mean, this is a little bit of a coincidence, is it not?
A bit different. So he's going to Lebanon, which obviously is like, that's not even the worst contrivance in this, but he's off to Lebanon to see the first few. They go to a terrorist training camp first, don't they? And you've just got Batman speaking a lot of Farsi, beating up terrorists, and then coming into contact with, presumably, if we go through, because they're just looking for it at the moment. Yeah, this is the hang gliders part. If you go back a page, the hang glide, because their rationale for the hang gliders is we'll look like birds from below. And I just love the idea, like how high they would actually have to be for that to be the case. But
there's the Joker with his cruise missile with some random Arabs
who want to shoot the missile at Tel Aviv. So he sells the missile, and then they're like, "Well, you're not actually going to leave us until we've proven that the missile's not a dud." And Joker's like, "Fine, we'll stay." And then Batman turns up and starts beating everyone up. And he's met up with Jason at this point, and they've worked out that their goals are not necessarily aligned, but they're after people who are connected to the same people. So they're going to work together temporarily. Joker, of course, has rigged the missile to explode, although the nuke doesn't actually go off. So they're like, "Oh, thank goodness, the nuke!" Because you can imagine being the writer and going, "Well, we want him to blow up the cruise missile, but we can't actually irradiate Batman with, we can't nuke him. There are limits."
Joker's lost his money, and I believe this is where we run into the first of the three women.
Yes.
And this is a Jewish lady, I believe. And then what happens?
Then they go off to the next one. Joker is wandering in the desert at this point and at a loss. So they go off to find a second woman, and they find a terrorist camp, effectively, where she is. And Joker has he's washed off his clown makeup and he's wandering around in normal face.
Well, I mean, I think it's established that normal face Joker is makeup. That in order for Joker, in order for Joker to look normal, he has to put pink makeup on because his real face is white or something like this.
I do like towel head Batman on the left panel there, but also it's also established that. I think Joker is a nuclear engineer in this, and that's why the nuke didn't go off. For some reason, like they just throw that in there randomly as a piece of backstory.
Well, he does. I mean, Joker does have chemist levels. That's always been a thing, hasn't it? That he's got some levels in chemistry. Then Lady Shiva turns up, and this is a pretty wicked fight. Actually, they have a good back and forth. Look
Batman
at that.
Like stop woman, and then she beats the crap out of him with nunchucks.
Look at that kick to the chin.
Yeah,
that must hurt.
And he disarms her, and she basically kicks him in the face for it. And I love the sound effects again. Thrack, Kurthak, Wuck.
And then Robin turns up to kind of help out because Lady Shiva's pretty tough. It suggests.
They try and put like a moment of consternation in Jason where he's like, this woman could be my mother, and then there's also my mentor. Who do I side with? Right. And it's kind of understated though, and he very quickly is like, well, I guess I'm going to side with Batman because I can always talk to her later.
And then they're like, did you have a baby?
And she went like. And then one of my favorite lines in this is underneath that the needle shot on the left there. Well, can you read that out?
Every fear of my being is revolted by the thought of what I'm about to do. It won't stop me, though.
Every fiber, I think, is...
Sorry.
Every fiber of my being is revolted by what I'm about to do. Won't stop me, though.
So basically, they put a truth serum in Lady Shiva to force her to say, like, no. Are you the mother of Jason Todd? And she's like, no.
At first, she tries to claim that she's basically given birth on every continent to litters. So they're down to one candidate, but it turns out that the Joker is already on his way to Ethiopia, where she is.
Yes, and it's this woman who's a doctor.
Yes, and the reason the Joker's interested in her, which I think you've skipped,
have I?
Somewhere, because Joker comes to see her before they turn up. I thought, but basically, Joker goes to see her. And is saying, well, you know, I've got blackmail material on you because you killed a patient whilst you were a doctor in the United States. And if you don't help me because I don't have money for my cruise missile, I am going to need 6 crates from your medical supplies that you have for the vaccines for Ethiopia program or something like that. And if you don't comply, I'm going to I'm gonna let everyone know that you're evil, and it's gonna ruin your day. So
classic bit of writing here, where she says, "Looks like things have been rough. The Great Joker reduced to hijacking trucks." And Joker says, "Just another victim of Reaganomics." That's me.
It's good, that one. Do you like that? So this is all going on while the Shiva situation is going on, but Robin and Batman end up going and meeting this woman, and she is Jason's biological mother. So Bruce leaves him there to get acquainted, and he spots Joker and is trying to work out what's going on, and he works out that Joker's blackmailing her pretty much for this stage. So at this point, how are you feeling about this story so far?
Yeah, I thought it was a bit lackluster, to be honest. I at this point, I didn't think it was much cop.
I know it's about a 6 out of 10 at the moment, right?
Yeah,
and it's gonna amp up. It's very good. First off, you can tell the amping up. Go back to 2 clicks. Is Batman literally getting out the Batcopter out of the back of his truck? Complete with little Batman symbol on it. You can imagine him just machining that away and then stamping it on the back of this purple helicopter. And they're trying to work out which trucks have the drugs in, because Joker has replaced the crates with Joker laughing gas as well, so that nobody knows the crates are missing, but he's still going to have his fun and gas a load of Ethiopians. Which is not a sentence I thought I'd be saying today. And they move in swiftly on. They're trying to capture him.
But this is now where Joker gets the famous crowbar, and there it is.
Oh yeah, so it turns out that the mother has absolutely no attachment to Jason whatsoever. This is really quite horrific. She pulls a gun on him and says, I'm basically not going to... I don't care. I've been embezzling money this entire time, and if they investigate, I'm going to get caught. So she hands him over to Joker, who pistol whips him, then pulls a crowbar out, and just that look on Todd's face in the bottom right there.
It's horrific.
It's horrific.
He's a 15-year-old boy.
You have to remember. And
look at that.
It's awful. And basically beats him to within an inch of his life. That's...
And look, the mother doesn't care. That's
she
cold.
Smokes a cigarette and
so
doesn't
cold.
Look. So Batman manages to stop the convoy, but we don't really care about this, so we move past that. And Jason wakes up and he's battered, bruised, covered in blood. And Joker's like, well, you think I would let you live? And has tied the mother up as well, and is going to blow them both up. and he unties her even so, and they try to get out, but the door's locked and the building blows up. And this is where a competition was launched by the comic, wasn't it? They said, you call this number and the Joker fails and Robin will live, or you call this number and Robin will die. And the fans chose to let him die, pretty much.
Now, if you were ringing in, which way would you have voted?
I don't know. Like, after the beating that he's received, I thought that maybe his character could go somewhere which was less, maybe he'd change his ways and stuff like that. But there is that little evil part of me which is like, you've been a bit of a shithead this entire time, and call the die hotline.
So I would like the chat, if anybody's still watching this, if you would have voted for Robin to be saved, press 1, and if you would have voted for Robin to be killed by the Joker here, press 2. Let's have a look.
Shocking.
Let's have a look. So let's see what we would. I mean, so you would have voted to save him? I
don't know. I'd go back and forth, but to be honest, I lean more towards killing him.
Two. Only Spaghetto has saved him. Nice atheist saved him.
Come in, but I definitely would have. I was the Duke of Hertfordshire 2, and I did vote 2 at the time.
So there we go. I mean, yeah. So let's get
the murder of a 15-year-old.
Right. So for me, this next bit now is where
you can't say this. Like, which way would have you voted?
Oh, I'd have killed him.
Yeah, I knew you would.
Come on.
Yeah, I appreciate that I was listening to an old Pendulum album at the time when I was reading this, but this next section, I mean, like, it's climaxing here, right? Or you think it's climaxing, and then chapter 5 is just, I mean, look at that cover as well. Like, you just know it's coming. It's awful. So we start off, we've got Batman.
Can we just say, do you think the DC had massive balls in 1988 to do this?
Absolutely. Like,
not only to run the poll, but then was like, yeah, we're going to kill him, and we're going to stick him right on the front cover as well.
Absolute savages. It's great.
I should say as well, one aspect that we haven't mentioned was that the sales of the comics were actually at an all-time low in 1986, 1987, and Frank Miller helped to revive the sales with the year 1 stuff, and then this apparently also helped to kick up the sales. On Detective Comics, the sales are a bit more sluggish, but
post Crisis on Infinite Earths and the birth of this side of it, the sales jumped up 22%. That's how much this improved their sales.
Yeah, but then when the Michael Keaton movie came out, I mean, I saw in Detective Comics, it went up from something like 75,000 issues a month to 750,000 issues a month.
It's more like 350,000, but yeah, it basically quadrupled their output.
So now, for me, this is where things get mental in this whole story, because well, let's keep on going and see what happens. So
Batman searching through the rubble, and at the same time having flashbacks about his time with Jason and how he trained him, and like, it's just a really well put together set of stuff, because again, no words are spoken really. Like, it's him thinking, but it's not really words. And then he finds the mother, and she is basically giving him this heroic end and talking about how she was a horrible person, but he still saved her, and he threw himself in front of her, between her and the bomb, and took the brunt of it, and then she dies, and then there's just the corpse of Jason Todd lying steaming in the ground.
Unbelievable.
It's so brutal. And he's like, I checked for a pulse, but it was obvious. And
no, just think back. Just think back, though. All that stuff he was saying to Dick Grayson a few issues back, and it's like, what have I done?
It's doubly hard. You can see it written, like, Aparo's done a really good job on the face, because he's not angry in the same way that he would be for other characters, or if something else had happened. He's just, you can see he's broken. You can see this face he doesn't know what to do. He's gone from being frustrated and angry and where's Jason to hasn't he right there?
Oh, well, because this is 100% his fault.
Yeah,
100%. There's no other way to look at it. There is no way Jason Todd would be in this situation. He'd still be hanging out with Ma Gunn if it wasn't for Batman.
Yeah. Or, well, he'd still be in that little shack he was in. So this panel on the right here confused me, because it is, I think, a carbon copy of the unloading panel where he was collecting the drugs earlier. But basically, the Joker is moving things around, and it doesn't know what he's doing. He's just going to sell off his bootleg medical supplies now, and he gets a mysterious message. He gets someone stands behind him.
In one of the most insane and ridiculous plot developments of all time, the Joker gets a phone call from the Ayatollah Khomeini, who offers him a job as the ambassador to the UN for Iran.
With full diplomatic immunity.
Which is mental. Absolutely mental. Like, it's not explained. Like, for one, what's the Ayatollah doing in Lebanon? I suppose directing Hezbollah. But
they've moved on from there. They've just been in Ethiopia, and now they're somewhere else.
Right.
So it's possible he's moved to Iran to get rid of his supplies, but it's still just a bizarre thing in there. There's another panel as well where Todd, before he dies, is beating up a pimp, and basically has this weird moment where he says, "You've got as much chance of sticking me with that blade as the Ayatollah Khomeini has of being awarded the Nobel Peace Prize." So they clearly already got Khomeini on the brain,
So this was one of the more unexpected cameos in any of this, that the Ayatollah has decided to commission the Joker. Now this presents a massive problem for Batman, of course, who wants to track down the Joker, but of course the Joker is now immune because he is an ambassador to the UN.
So yeah, he goes. In fact, we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit here. Batman has decided he's going to hunt down Joker, and he's basically over the course of the funeral and a little bit afterwards, he's come to the conclusion that the Joker cannot be allowed to live. He's hurt too many people, and he'd been using his insanity. Batman had been using his insanity as a reason to keep him alive, when really he should be killing him. So he's very surprised when Superman comes down out of nowhere and says, I understand that there's a really personal issue for you, but there's some news I need to tell you. And he's kind of delaying a bit. He won't tell Batman, to the point where, on the next page, Batman's like, who are you talking about? And he's like, who? And then he punches Superman in the face and almost breaks his hand. And the only reason he doesn't is Superman rolls with the punch. And
this is a most unexpected appearance from Superman, but also I love the fact that Superman is always in the role of being like basically a Fed stooge for the US government. Always. Why is Superman always a stooge for the US government?
Well, he is a patriot.
Yeah,
but the bottom right panel there is emphasized because they arrive at the UN building, and that bottom right panel is just the Joker's foot stepping out the car, and you can hear the rage in Batman's voice. No. As he gets out.
And there he is now as an
aristocrat. Yes.
Yeah, no, this is ridiculous. The Middle Eastern peace envoy, the Joker. So we go on to chapter 6. No, this is a bit longer than I remember it, Death in the Family. I seem to remember it only being 4 issues, but
it is 4 issues, but there's multiple chapters in each issue. We're on the last chapter now, I believe.
Yeah. So this is Superman essentially like trying to talk Batman out of killing Joker still, and basically says, "Listen." Doesn't he say like basically you've been told I'm going to have to take measures if you won't listen, essentially.
And Batman says, "I'll do what I have to," as you might say, Man of Steel. And then they kind of leave each other alone. And then Bruce is again having his moment of conflict of conscience because, of course, he's trying to rationalize the desire to kill him, and every time he's like, "But he killed Jason. But he killed Jason."
You know what's interesting about this is that one of the great ironies of the Joker, if anybody knows, Joker will never kill Batman.
No,
even when he has a chance to kill Batman, he won't do it because it's like, well, that's my fun, basically. I wouldn't. So it's now this situation where Batman can't kill. Like, he really wants to kill Joker at this point, and he can't.
He turns up and he doesn't really know that Joker's responsible. He suspects, but he doesn't know. And he confronts the Joker and says, basically, step down, go away, and we'll call it quits. And Joker says, no chance. Also, I definitely killed Jason. And Batman's like, I'm going to find you and I'm going to kill you, basically. And Joker is in love with this idea. You can see in the bottom right, again, the panel. I can't see what it is he exactly is saying there, but it's like, oh, my heart's all aflutter, basically.
Oh my God, what a bastard.
Yeah.
Why don't you let your assistant handle it? Oh, just rub it, just kind of rubbing it in and having fun with it as well.
Yeah. And so he turns, Joker goes to shoot Batman, and Batman's already gone. And then it's the next day. It's the UN meeting where he turns up, and he looks like a just the look on his face. Like, I love that contrast on the top right of the Joker's smile with Bruce Wayne's rage.
And he gives this absurd speech about like fish. Apparently.
Oh yeah. I love that. What's this? Read the second panel there. It says, "I am proud." What is it?
He says, "It's a great honor for me to be here tonight. I am proud to speak for the Great Islamic Republic of Iran."
that bit there. I'm proud to speak for the Great Islamic Republic of Iran, and the way he's dressed and everything. I'm just like, this is LGBT activists.
That country's current leaders and I have a lot in common: insanity and a great love of fish. But unfortunately, we also share a mutual problem. We get no respect. Everyone thinks of Iran as the home of a terrorist zealot. They say even worse things about me, would you believe? We both suffered unkind abuse and belittlement. Well, we aren't going to take it anymore. You'll no longer be allowed to kick us around. In fact, you aren't going to be able to kick anyone around ever again. Say goodnight, Gracie. And then I think he has the idea that he's going to blow up the UN. Is that right?
He's gassing them all with laughing gas.
That's it.
And then Superman is there in disguise, and he inhales all of the gas in the room before it can take effect. But he can't stick around because they've got to Deus Ex Machina him out of there somehow. So he's like, I've got to offload this gas somewhere safe, and flies out of there, leaving Batman to chase Joker as he does.
So yes, what happens then? Does he?
Well, we get this huge color shift, and he ends up fighting Joker on the helicopter. And one of Joker's lackeys sprays and prays with the gun and shoots the pilot, which causes the Batman to bail out of the helicopter and the helicopter to explode. And Superman rescues him. And as you can see there, he's saying, please, find the body, and they never do, and he knows it's because he and the Joker are fated to come face to face once again.
Yeah, because that's the way things always end with me and the Joker, unresolved. The end. So yeah. So what do you make of? So I think we'd agree that the first half of the story is a bit lackluster, but after things pick up, what do you reckon? Do you think they get better out of 10?
Definitely a much stronger entry. It's definitely up there. Although I appreciate I've yet to read a lot more of the modern stuff and stuff. But comparing it to the stuff I do know, I prefer the kind of slightly more fantastical, more archetypal Rogues Gallery and Joker stuff to the more grounded stuff that's in things like Year One and a lot of the Cape Crusader Volume 1. So that sort of stuff didn't really mesh with me very well, but the rest of it was it definitely got much better as it went along. You can definitely see where they've taken the darker turn, but they've still retained kind of enough, like the campness isn't camp, but it's still there. Do you know what I mean?
So that's there is a very last couple of issues that we haven't dealt with right at the end of Cape Crusader Volume 1. That was Batman 4330 and 431. So there was Fatal Wish. I can't remember much what happens here. This is like the first episode, the first issue after Jason Todd has died. Anything? I mean, it's just a kind of there was an interesting little flashback to the death of his parents there, done in yellow for some reason. I know you wanted to talk about that. the use of yellow, Mark.
It's just there's a lot of yellow in there. Yeah, it was like this bizarre obsession with single color tones, which worked really well in some places, and in others just looks garish like this. It's like everything is carved out of cheese.
So yeah, there was the flashback. Whap! Great slap of so this is young Bruce getting slapped by his own father, which is just an additional bit of backstory that we didn't get before. And then of course anger at his own father, and then of course that night he was killed. So yeah, we get I mean, this happens quite a bit where we get reminded of Batman's origins once in a while, don't we? And yeah, this is also him like coping essentially with death of Jason Todd as well. So he's a bit he's still like emotional at this point. And then we have this final story by Stalin in fact, it's not by Stalin. Stalin's run has ended now. This is by some chap called Owsley. So just before we get on to that, Jim Stalin as a writer, before we wrap up, what did you make of him? Good run, better run than Collins, same 5 out of 10, 7 out of 10.
I mean, Collins had the kind of occasional moments of greatness, but I feel like he really struggled with being self-motivated. I didn't feel like he knew where he wanted to take Batman. There was no real sense of continuity, and the bottle episodes surrounding his shall we say departure were awful. And I don't mind, like, there's a part of me which enjoys the odd really stupid camp mime episode. They're quite amusing to read, but you don't want that to be the whole thing. And one of the things I really enjoyed about the later runs was the sense of continuity with it and the character development for Batman and so on. So I enjoyed Stalin's run more. Yeah.
So I actually love a bit of campy. I love it when it's like super villains and the sillier side of Batman, if you want to put it that way. But that can be done well or it can be done badly. And for some reason, I feel like Collins never quite got it right on that side of things. And then you had the kind of weird tonal inconsistency as well. My main issue with Stalin is that I thought that there was too many issues that were just boring.
Oh yeah, I definitely think it took him a long time to find his feet. The KGB stuff was awful, truly awful. But I feel like he's got bigger highs for bigger lows. Maybe, I don't know. It's not even a low. It's kind of just monotonous.
Yeah, all is forgiven by me though for issue 416. That is that confrontation between Batman and Nightwing, and the meeting between Jason Todd and Dick Grayson. For me, that was the best issue that we read. And of course, Death in the Family is iconic and classic, and just for those brutal panels of Joker killing Robin, that's cool as well. So, but I would say, like, I don't want to be too. I would say the Max Allen Collins, like a 4 out of 10 run, and the Jim Starlin maybe a 6 out of 10 run, all in.
All in? I don't know, maybe a 7. I'd say.
Okay. But I do think Jim Aparo is really good on the art. I think the artwork is superb. So if we're counting in the artwork, I'd bump it up maybe to a 7 or an 8.
Yeah.
But just for the writing, I'd maybe a 6.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough for the writing itself. We'll give it that.
And then there's this thing about the wall, which is more of a. I can't really remember what happens here, but
I don't think I've read this one. No.
The filler. It's just.
Oh yes, it's the ninjas, and it's just a weird. He goes to meet the guy, and then nothing happens. that was basically it.
Just rubs. So that was it. We got there. AV Beast.
Yeah, and that costume.
So I mean, what's going to happen with this? What's going to happen with this show is that the next time I'll probably have Mr. D on to talk about modern art, and at some point I also want to talk about maybe like British comedy, and I'll talk about things like that. But there will be another Batman episode. I don't know about the pace of your reading, Mark, but maybe every other episode, or one in every 3, something like that.
We'll see what we can do.
Yeah. But essentially, next time, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the detective comics from the same time period. So we looked from December 1986 to March 1989. And we're going to look at that exact same time period for Detective Comics, running through Mike Barr's run, which is collected in The Dark Knight Detective Volume 1. And then we're going to look at the Alan Grant Norm Breyfogle run, which is collected in The Dark Knight Detective Volume 2 and 3. So we're going to be running through those 3. So if you want to catch up, if you want to read along with us, you'll have like at least 2 weeks to try to catch up. If you can. And who knows, if you ask in the right places, there may be people who will be able to source that for you. But I'd encourage you to buy it from D4C. Yes, and we will be going all the way. I mean, the plan is, Mark, whether Mark sticks with me or drops out at some point if he gets fed up, but my plan is to go all the way to actually reach Tom King eventually. So through Nightfall, through No Man's Land, through Hush and War Games, and all of Grant Morrison's run and all of Scott Snyder's run. I intend to do the whole lot for this series. So yeah.
I'm gonna have to go and boot up Batman Arkham Asylum after this finishes.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us for this first show. A little bit different, and it'll take because it's a brand new show. I'm sure it will take a while to attract its own kind of own little viewers and things. But I hope people enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments, and get out.
That was the least.
Get out, Dick. Get out.
That's better.